and uncertainties in life, God offers to us more hope.
Welcome to More Hope 2. We're excited to be here with you today to look at a very, very special topic. Did you know that 16 out of the 38 parables in the gospel deals with handling money and possessions?
Well, Jesus said more about money than he did about salvation, heaven, and hell put together.
Really? That's
Yes,
kind of
he did.
hard to believe. In fact, we know that there are over 2,350 verses in the Bible that address money.
Yes, the Bible is your instruction manual for wise money management.
That's a good thing because we believe in using the Bible. But today's topic, what are we talking
What
about?
every Christian should know about money. More than any preceding age, personal finances have become an enormous challenge. Often our closest relationships cannot escape the tensions and disputes that money can bring. Debt tends to raise the level of stress between couples, especially amongst women.
Well, conflict over money is still the leading cause of divorce today. Families facing enormous burdens often threaten to break up simply over the issue of money.
Thankfully, whatever your situation, status, and family structure, you can find hope and relief. Let the Bible be your instruction manual for wise money management.
We want to present 3 vital keys towards financial stability. We want to also challenge you with some suggestions of things that you can do that are very practical, that can ease the tension in your relationships. But we know you've got a group leader and you're getting ready for that study. So get into that study and we're going to see you on the other side. Welcome back. I'm glad you had a good study. I know you learned something. So while you hold on to those beautiful gems that you just learned, we want to take it a little further and look at some other aspects of financial management. Petronella?
We want to share with you some key points that will help you as you go through this journey. Key number 1, save. The Bible uses the principle of the ant to illustrate this important principle. Since 2000, personal savings have fallen to negative 2.2%, the lowest in 60 years.
Wow.
This means that not only are Americans failing to save, but they're actually accumulating debt. Currently, around 78 million Americans have no savings at all. No savings.
Wow. The challenge we want to give to you today is to save something in every pay period. Save something. Someone who is faithful in saving every month, no matter how small, over time will build wealth.
Well, the vital key number 2 that we would like to share with you is debt. Get out and stay out. We are told in Proverbs 22 verse 7, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Imagine for a moment with me when somebody is telling you what to do with your money and how to live your life. You're probably wondering, this doesn't happen. Well, exactly, here's what happens. When you have debt, they tell you what to pay, when to pay, and they even give you the repercussions or the punishment for not paying on time.
Wow.
You have to pay your debts on time.
When must you pay? How should you pay? Wow. Those are important aspects and dynamics. Sometimes we don't believe that we're being enslaved by the way that we handle money, but we are. There's a huge TV hit called Storage Wars. I don't know if you've heard of it, but this details this growing phenomena of excess and consumerism that is plaguing America. In fact, in Romans 13:8, it counsels us, owe no one anything except to love each other, for the one who loves has fulfilled the law. So the challenge today is stop borrowing money. No, really, stop borrowing money. You can never be free from financial pressure without stopping the borrowing of money.
Well, here are 4 practical steps to help you reduce the debt. Often we find ourselves in a position that we have the debt, and we want to find out how do we get out of debt. The first step you do is list your debts, the smallest balance first, regardless of the interest rate. I know that you're probably wondering, regardless of the interest rate, why? Pay the smallest debt first. And the reason why you do this is because we want you to have momentum. We want you to be able to see yourself overcoming the debt by paying the smallest one first. The uncomfortable truth is that our financial challenges did not come about by practicing good math and logics. In fact, we need to experience success so that we can improve our financial habits. These quick wins are really helping us to be able to be encouraged to move on.
Right, so what you're saying is that if we just practice this, systematic way of getting rid of our debt, just the smallest first, that momentum will give us encouragement to keep moving on as we try to eliminate that.
Sure. The third step that you could do is clear the clutter and commit to selling anything you have. When you have that fund, take that money and apply it to your debt. When the small debt is paid, take that payment, add it to the next debt. The extra payment will create momentum, helping you to eliminate that debt.
Key number 3, create a plan. Proverbs 21 and verse 5 tells us, the plans of the diligent lead surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. Manage money goes further. That's the principle. If you manage it, it stretches out further. People usually don't plan to fail, they just fail to make a written plan. Having a written plan in your budget removes crisis from your money management. In fact, it can eliminate a lot of fights. It can eliminate a lot of arguments and challenges amongst other people and other relationships. So it's important to create a plan.
Did you know that we are told in Proverbs 27 verse 23 to be diligent to know the state of your flocks and attend to your herds? We may not think of this in terms of our current day flocks and herds, but this is a timeless principle. It is a principle that teaches to always know the state of your finances. You need to know what you own and what you owe.
So here's another challenge for you. Once you've listed all your debts, as you were told in step 2, also diligently list your income.
And you want to create what's known as a zero-based budget. Zero-based does not mean you don't have money. This simply means you must allocate all your money on paper first, so that there's nothing left over. Spend all your money on paper first. Decide what every penny should do and where it should go. And not just your bills and your expenses, but be sure to remember to save something.
Number 3, stop shopping impulsively. Plan the use of your money. Is it okay just to go out and buy something on a whim? Do you think that's a good thing?
No. You should plan even your shopping. You should have a shopping list when you go out shopping. How about number 4, which says, don't write post-dated, hot, or even slightly warm checks. Make sure you have the money in the account before you write that check.
But how about if I know the money is going to be in the account at some point? Isn't that good enough to maybe write and send off a check just expecting the money to land in the account?
Make sure that you have planned all your spending.
So I can't do that?
No.
Okay. Point number 5. Commit to spend only what you have. Usually 40% of families overspend every month. But there's some practical application here. As you've done professional financial counseling with many couples, you've come across a number of challenges that couples have. Why don't you share with our families here, share a little bit.
Some of the challenges that I've come across is making sure that you're on the same page. If you're married, make sure you and your husband and your wife spend the time to go over your finances together. Let me share a story with you. A few years ago, I met a couple who came to me. They had $68,000 worth of debt. And guess what? Part of that included student debt, which meant that one of them had not even finished school. And here's what happened. They took hold of these principles. They started getting out of debt. They started working and selling stuff. They started doing overtime. And do you know, I had the pleasure about 4 years later of meeting that couple. They had paid off $68,000 worth of debt in 4 years. So these principles really do work. Do you remember the story about that young man who happened to get himself into trouble because he was trying to get rich quickly?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to share that?
Well, you know how it goes. Sometimes we can't wait. So we want to do things very, very quickly. So we get into all kinds of get-rich schemes. And the Bible speaks intensely about falling into that kind of trap of accepting things that look really good on the surface, but don't actually mesh out. In fact, I can remember a story in our lives early in our marriage. Do you remember that story?
I do. Let me share that story.
Right.
I remember years ago, a friend of ours came to my husband and I and asked if you could help us make some money in 3 months. He told us that he could treble what it is that we would put into the investment. Well, he came to us, we discussed it, and my husband had some strange feeling about the plan, and we decided not to get involved in that get-rich-quick scheme. So that individual went ahead and did what he had to do. 3 months later, he came and he shared with me what had happened. He had got involved, he had invested some money, over $10,000. And the sad part of it was, when I asked him, where did you get that $10,000? He told me he had actually gone to his parents and had borrowed the $10,000. But here's what had happened. The investment that he had put that money into got frozen by the government, and he never ever got the $10,000 back to be able to pay his parents. Therefore, sometimes it pays to save gradually over time, rather than work on something of trying to get rich quickly. Here's another example that I'd like to share with you, where we think these principles are just principles, but they really do work. I remember somebody met with me and they had no savings whatsoever. They asked me, Petronella, how do I even make money to be able to save for an emergency fund? I asked them to go ahead and just make a list of some of the places, for example. Every morning on the way to work, they would go ahead and purchase something for breakfast. That cost them $8 to $10. Then they'd buy lunch. And before you know it, they had spent over $25 in just eating out for that day. Here's the principle on this. Here's what you need to do. Take those extra cash or that extra money and apply it to your debt so that you can get out of debt. Did you know that credit card debt is really a big problem? Even in colleges, these credit card sharks, as I call them, are on campuses offering a t-shirt, offering a hat to our students who are just starting out in life, hoping that they will get trapped. And when it comes to having that amount of debt, they have no way of getting out of it. And sometimes it can cause a lot of problems in their relationships.
I hear you. In fact, there's a simple principle. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And it's always good to follow the simple advice of the Bible. The Bible basically tells us that we should build gradually as we go. We should take our time. We shouldn't fall into the idea of getting rich quick. One of the reasons for that is that God wants us to depend on Him to provide for our needs. God knows what we need even more than we do, so we should trust Him.
Personal finance is 80% behavior and only 20% knowledge. We need to change some habits so that we can do better with our finances.
It's kind of like dieting, isn't it? They say if you want to lose weight, it's more about what you eat even than it is about the exercise.
That's
so
right.
You've actually got to do something practical.
Yes.
You've got to change what you put in your mouth. And in finances, you've got to change those financial behaviors if you want to be successful. And God wants us to be successful in our finances.
The road to better finances is not easy. It takes determination, commitment, and prayer. God wants us to be free from this pressure that money challenges can bring. It's important to keep the lines of communication open with your spouse.
That's right. In fact, we ought to set aside regular time so that we can spend time together. And I advise you, as you set aside that time, almost like a date if you're married, set aside that time and pray about your finances. How about that? Pray that God would breathe His breath of life into your finances and that God would give you the insight and the impetus to do what it is that really helps you and build you up, because God wants to see you successful. Remember that you ought to have financial goals. Put them down on paper. Make sure that they're written. If necessary, seek out some professional help, some Christian financial professional help. But one thing we have to remember at all times is that God is with us. God wants us to be successful. God wants us to look to Him for our needs. In fact, in Hebrews 13, verses 5 through 6, it gives this general principle that we want to leave with you today. That is, God will never leave us or forsake us. God bless you as you move forward in changing your financial habits and changing your life. May God imbue His power in you and give you the drive and the insight and the courage to do differently. God bless.
God bless.